Sides rested in the trial of Mitrez Woolen, who is the man charged with capital murder in the shooting death of Starrville Methodist pastor Mark McWilliams.
Yeah, today a rare moment in court happening. KLTV's J.D. Conti was there as Woolen waived his Fifth Amendment right, taking the stand in his own defense.
Do you even know what you just said? You don't. That's what I thought.
Mitrez Woolen was the only defense witness in his own capital murder trial. His lawyers, in their opening statement, said he suffered from mental health problems like schizophrenia at the time of the crime.
He's supposed to be on medication, but he wasn't.
Woolen did not deny leading police on a chase along I-20 the night before. He told jurors he broke into the church seeking shelter. McWilliams discovered him when he was opening the church on Sunday morning.
I was cooperating before he pulled out the gun.
Woolen says he asked McWilliams if he could leave. Woolen says he grabbed the weapon when McWilliams was close to him.
I was trying to protect myself. That was my only intention at the time.
Woolen claimed the first shot was an accident, a hit to McWilliams in the chest.
Leg shot in the head, did he?
Yes, sir. He was trying to choke me.
Sergeant Noel Martin with the Smith County Sheriff's Crime Scene Unit conducted a shooting reconstruction. Woolen claimed the gun first went off when McWilliams was directly on top of him. The state says the evidence doesn't line up with his story.
That placed the shooter above the victim.
Additionally, there was no gunshot residue found on McWilliams' chest.
There should be still in common loading itself if it was fired at that close of a distance.
Prosecutors say it doesn't matter if Woolen was defending himself because he was stealing from the church. Witnesses testified to seeing Woolen with a church money bag. It was later found in the truck he's also accused of stealing. Woolen did not deny breaking into the building.
Why didn't you just wait for the cops and you tell them, hey, look, things really went bad and these people were trying to kill him? Why did you flee the scene in a stolen vehicle with the church's money bag and the preacher's gun?
It was an overwhelming situation. Again, I didn't know I knew I had did something wrong.
Under Texas law, a killing is capital murder if it's committed during another felony. J.D. Conti, KLTV 7 News.
Closing statements begin tomorrow morning. The state is not seeking the death penalty again. Woolen faces the possibility of life in prison. We'll keep you updated as everything progresses. Again, 9 o'clock in the morning. We'll be there.